Steve Jobs is mentioned in here in the beginning of the portion. And Steve Jobs was a visionary. From my perspective, I'm a fan of Apple products and whatnot, but his story is kind of nuts, man. It's kind of from the ground up, working in the garage kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about that portion for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in the 80s. My teenage years was in the 90s, so computers were just kind of being revealed and shared with us. I remember the first time a computer was really as a resource for us in high school. We would go into the library to try the internet and stuff. And, actually, even before that, I think when I was in grade school, I remember they had us play this game. Maybe you might help me on this one, Michael, but it was like Oregon Trail. Does that sound right?
Oregon Trail.
Oh, see, yeah. We used to play Oregon Trail. That was like the game, man. Just the fact that we could play games at school, right? And so my dad, he was an entrepreneur, businessman, small businesses, and we had an Apple computer at home, and we had games like Dig Dug. You remember Dig Dug?
No.
I'm looking at Michael because I know he's same era.
Oregon Trail is kind of like my I grew up with
that. It was just seeing the evolution of computers all the way to when phones came out, smartphones and all these things, man. It's just like, I love history. Like my mother, she loves history, and I bring her up because I noticed she always likes the background story of things, and so I'm the same way. Like, still to this day, when I watch a movie, in the middle of the movie, I'm on my phone, and Tiff will look like, well, man, why are you on your phone? I want to know, like, where they produced the movie, where's it actually being shot, like, like, where's the actor today? Like, I just start going on this history journey. So, with Steve Jobs, just looking at the history of the evolution of, computers and smartphones. And I mean, today it's so revolutionary, it's always interesting to look at the history of, like, where this origin was, like, where did this actually birth and how did it come to be? And so there's movies out now with Steve Jobs. And I think that's where what I love about movies is it really introduces you to a story visually, right?
Yes.
And so those movies started my history journey with Steve Jobs, but I'm a big fan of just, somebody taking a small idea and see how far you can take it, and then being successful, meaning being able to actually be impactful with what you do. It was so impactful still to this day. I mean, just what we see with even AI on phones. I mean, this is like the evolution just continues and continues. So, I was a big fan of the origin and the history of, the evolution of smartphones and Apple and stuff. So yeah, he was someone I always look to as a business entrepreneur. And then his story in general too is just very, like, it's crazy, right?
Yeah. So I was reading that, and you mentioned that because this chapter is about stepping into your calling. And with Steve Jobs, I don't know if he got fired or he left Apple for a little bit.
Yeah, he got let go, man.
Got let go. That
from your own company.
How is that even possible, bro?
I think
just majority of the shareholders, like,
there gets a point where if you grow and you start, you incorporate and you get to a certain level, and you got to spread out your investments and people and co-owners, and you have a certain percentage in the company, and you got to kind of do that to take some leaps, or at least it was a learning curve for him.
Yeah.
And there was a point where, they let him go, and he was outvoted, and you're out of your own company, and I don't forget the reason. I don't know if the movies were, fully true, but whatever the case may be, man, I can't imagine, like, working, because a company is like a baby.
Sure.
So you're just sharing with me before, like, how you feel that anxiety with your baby. That's the same feeling entrepreneurs feel with the company that they're building for a purpose, right? Because it's not about just the profit or free time, because we're passionate and want to be impactful with what we're doing and want it to be purposeful. So when we're pouring all our energy, there is no time off. There is no energy. It's like you're pouring everything in you're shaping and creating and forming and trying to get this product or service to a certain point to be impactful. And I can't imagine you get into a certain plateau and you have so much more vision and want to keep forming, and then all of a sudden, like your colleagues or those who are in partnership with you in the vision that's supposed to be from the origin,
Right.
say, hey man, you're going way out of the creative zone. Like, we're trying to stay on Earth, you're in the moon. You know what I mean? Like we're not trying to hit the moon, we're trying to serve the Earth, and so you're out of here, man.
That's right. That's great. And I think the perspective thing is coming back. It seems like it's all over this book, which is kind of one of the bigger pictures. But on the book, it says when he left, or when he got fired, it says, getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could ever happen to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. That's kind of nuts, because it's almost like you just let go of all the expectations and you get back to what you originally loved.
Yeah, and that's part of, like, see, God starts preparation with us. It's kind of like what I was just talking about with the company. He starts preparation with us in your mother's womb, it says in scriptures, right? He's already preparing, molding, forming, and creating. And as you're born and you're going through life, he's kind of he's doing the same thing. Like I was just talking with the company, right? He's just shaping and doing all these things. And there are points in in life, all of us go through that are super challenging. We lose somebody very close with us to death. We navigate, stress or anxieties or worries that come along and force us to do things. We make bad decisions in life that kind of have us decourse and do certain things. So as we're going through this path, God's continuously molding us and doing things. And then there's this point where he lost what he was pushing for. And this is how God, as he was preparing us through life, he also is parenting us now. And so what he was doing with Steve was he was parenting him. It's like a parent, like you're a parent, you have a child, and they're trying to put their hand on the stove and it's hot, but then they get a little cocky and give you a little attitude and like, no, and they still try to put their hand on the stove. And sometimes I got to feel the burn to know, like, that's why, right? You can't put your hand on the stove. So I think it was one of those things where if we were to like look at it from a multiverse view and say, hey, if Steve would have stayed in the company, this is what would have happened. And we could see the end. And that's like the whole point of this book is like, we can't see the end all the time, but like if we could like see the end, you would look back and say, yes, thank you for taking me to the right. And that's what happened with Steve. I think he had this understanding afterwards, like I had to be let go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
I did. And it put him in a place where he did exactly what you said. He let go of all this stuff. And so as we're going through life, there's certain areas, man, that, when I didn't go to the NFL or I didn't, succeed in finishing college, I could look back and say, yes, those were personal failures. But I think God allowed those to pan out because I needed to suffer with those kind of losses to go through the path that he needed me to go through. And now when I look back, it's like, oh man, and so I think he got let go in 1985 and he didn't come back till about 1997. So that's 12 years, man.
I can imagine what his thoughts were, because you don't know that after 12 years you'll be back, but the stress and the unknown of what's going to happen next, or is that even in your heart to try to get back to your company, or you know what I mean? It seems heavy on the mind.
I think he let go. I don't know for sure, but I want to say he let go and just created new companies, Pixel and, next something, he just started building other companies and just kept going with his calling and his purpose. He knew what it was. Was to innovate, to create, and so as he was being parented, once you go from preparation to parenting, now it's positioning. And that's what God needed to do. He wanted him back at Apple. He knew what he was going to do with him, but he had to position him. Right in the perfect spot, his heart in the perfect spot. And that's when he got let back in, was when that time and God's time all aligned. And now it was like, boom. Yeah. Two streams, just boom.
I love the parenting aspect, because You know, when I watch Zozo, I take her walking and stuff, and like I'm aware of what's on her left or what's on her right, if there's a bike coming behind us or whatnot. But when the time comes, I slowly, if a bike's coming on the right side and she's walking towards that, I'll slowly come in and kind of like gently lean her to the left, knowing that there's something coming here. But that verse you mentioned here is, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my, and this is what I circled, my loving eye on you. And it's like, I'm doing it because I love her and I don't want the bad things to be in proximity of her. And it's almost like that stove thing where it's like, you know, you want to tell your kid no, but at the same time, it's like they're just, that this curiosity is innate in them where, you know, they need to find out for some reason. And sometimes you just got to let them, like, honestly, just let them touch the hot stove. Sometimes we learn that way, you know.
I think like that as an adult. I'm like, man, I don't want to be the kid touching the hot stove. Like, I understand God allows things, but I want to use wisdom now.
Yeah.
You know, to say, okay, because you said so, that's all I need.